we are today, if you can't tell behind me, well, it's pretty developed. And this is one of Savannah's most important sites, and probably one of the sites that's almost lost to history and that a lot of people pass by. And behind me is a very cool marker that we're going to check out commemorating one of the most historic sites in this location. So what you're seeing right now is the historical marker for something called the Trustees' Garden. Now, this was a garden that the colonists here after Oglethorpe had settled Savannah that was put in place, and it was put here to do a couple of different things. One, of course, to grow things for the colonists to use. Two, to be able to grow things that they could actually use to trade and make some money off of. And this was called the Trustees' Garden. It was set here in 1733 is when the site was developed in this location, and the garden was actually planted in 1734. And when they started planting this thing, they would plant things such as medicinal herbs, hemp, flax, potatoes, indigo, olives, different cuttings of different herbs and plants. And they also planted mulberry trees. And mulberry trees were essential to silk. So it was really sandy soil here in this location. If you have sandy soil, well, it's not really good for growing things. They didn't quite understand that at the time. They're new to the area. So they're just trying to see what they can and can't do. And today, fortunately, there is a spot reserved commemorating that Trustees' Garden, which you see right here. So this is the modern day kind of commemoration of that Trustees' Garden here just off of Broad Street in Savannah, and we're right by the famous Pirate House restaurant. So this is the commemoration of the Trustees' Garden. Okay, so the Trustees' Garden was in this location, but there was also another series of very historically important sites that would be built on the same ground at different times. And let's explore what you may think is just a development area today, but is the most important historical site in all of Savannah. So as we're walking through here, you're seeing structures, you're seeing modernization, and you see some buildings that really doesn't look like they belong to that. Well, this is remnants of fortifications that was built in this location in Savannah over the course of several years. Okay, so let's rewind to the year 1740, shall we? And this is right after Oglethorpe and the colonists come here to Savannah. They settled on the Yamacraw Bluff, which we're on right now. The Savannah River's right over my shoulder behind these buildings. And this is a very historic place because in 1740, they saw the need to put up a fortification. At that time, you had a really lost war to history called the War of Jenkins' Ear. And yes, I said that right. The War of Jenkins' Ear. And that was a war during this time with the Spanish. So they saw a need to have to set up a kind of fortification here to help defend Savannah. So in this location where I'm at right now, which looks like a parking lot, but if you turn the camera behind me here, you see the remains of what was once the sites of many different fortifications. Now, fortunately, I can't even go out here right now. They have this gated off, no trespassing. I can't even walk out here. And yeah, there may be a sidewalk right here, but it's locked. So I can't even get here. But this was the original site of Oglethorpe's fort in 1740. This is a wooden stockade. Back then you didn't have the big brick stockades in positions such as this. You had wooden stockades. So Oglethorpe's fort was built here in 1740 during the War of Jenkins' Ear. and it never saw battle. It never saw an engagement here. And then in 1759, Fort Halifax replaced the site of Oglethorpe's fort. And by 1764, just before the American Revolution, it was in really bad shape. So in 1765, as the American Revolution was on the brink, you had something called the Stamp Act that come into effect. This angered the Georgia colonists, this angered the colonists all around. The Stamp Act was one of the causes of the revolution. Well, here on this site somewhere was a guardhouse, and that guardhouse was manned by 200 Royal Rangers, the captain of which was named John Millage Sr. And they were tasked with guarding the things that were concerning the Stamp Act, because people here wanted to destroy them. They wanted to get their hands on them, parade them through the streets, and get rid of them because they were mad about what the Crown was doing. Well, his son, John Millage Jr., was a member of the Liberty Boys. And what he did is he comes here and he devises a plan to actually get rid of those. So during the American Revolution, you often hear the Civil War, brother against brother. During the American Revolution, it was literally father against father, or father against son rather, in this location. So a cool little story that's lost to history that was one of the main historical moments in all of Savannah's history that took place right here. So from this parking lot, you kind of get a good sense of the area. And just to remind you, this parking lot at one time was the fortification. So what's covered by pavement today was once the most historical site in Savannah. And the war for the American Revolution began in 1775, and it lasted until 1883. In 1778, the Americans built a fortification on the edge of the garden property somewhere in this vicinity. During the second battle in Savannah, during the American Revolution, the British swept past the fort and flanked the Americans. This resulted in a rout in which some of the Patriots drowned in a creek at high tide when they were fleeing from the British. The British then occupied this site as part of an extensive series of earthworks around Savannah that was here to help protect Savannah against any counterattacks from the colonists. The siege of Savannah in 1779 was fought largely on the other side of town at the Spring Hill Redoubt. But when the British pulled back and tightened their defenses in the city of Savannah, they established a fort here called Fort Prevost, named after Augustine Prevost, the commander over the forces during that October 1779 action at Spring Hill Redoubt. Now, during the War of 1812, the United States replaced this fortification in this spot with an old star. They replaced, and during that time there was an old star-shaped fort here when the British were here after the battle in 1779. But they replaced that with a sickle-shaped formation called Fort Wayne. Now, part of Fort Wayne is actually still here, and this is the wall you see today surrounding this site. Now, during the 19th century, after the Trustees' Garden became a place of industry, this is when they started converting this place. And when they started converting this place, it started converting to War of 1812 fortifications. And then that's remnants of what you see in this location today. So this is a place that is lost to history almost. There's a small part of it preserved here. There's some literature here you can come read. But after these actions, these buildings were established here, and you can come see some of those original buildings from the last fortification that was in this area today. All right, so that is a little bit of the history here in Savannah. And today, the place you see behind me, the Pirates House, is one of the most popular tourist destinations here in Savannah, Georgia. But when people come to the Pirates House, they don't realize you're stepping on more than just this old home that's historic. You're stepping on the site of multiple fortifications in defense of the city of Savannah during multiple time frames and conflicts. So if you come here to Savannah, come visit this place and learn some history for yourself. Until next time, guys, we'll see you soon. Keep preserving history. Stay safe.